Hello, welcome to Tales Under the Cat Tree. My name is Dileepu Jayawardena, better known as Dupes. In this podcast, we'll explore the wonderful worlds created by words on paper, from technology and the future to fiction and other realms. If you want to get to know me and find out who I am, you can listen to episode number 1, where I attempt to put you to sleep with all the gory details. Please remember that all my writing is available on my Substack at tales.dupes.ca, including the articles that make up this episode. If you enjoy this or any of my writing, please do subscribe to either this podcast or the Substack, where I hope to bring you articles, stories, and interviews regularly. Welcome to episode 10 for the week of July 6th, 2025. Have you noticed that the market for self-help and how to succeed at business is so incredibly massive? In January 2025, the Washington Post said that there were, and I kid you not, 15,000 self-help books each year, some thousands of which likely have the terms manager or leader in the title. And I'm only talking about the English language, maybe even just North America. Why so many? Well, fundamentally, management and leadership is not something that comes naturally to any of us. But if you get a bunch of people together to accomplish a task, and you don't want to have a Tower of Babel scenario and have the whole thing collapse under you, you need to work out how to get to the end successfully. At one time or another, someone I have worked with in any number of companies of various sizes have made the statement, I want to advance in my career, I need to become a manager. In today's world, where we are struggling with understanding how artificial intelligence will impact our individual contributor roles in companies, I can understand that more than ever, someone is thinking, I guess I need to figure out this management thing. Today, I would like to talk about the perils of management versus leadership. Remember in episode 8 when I said, don't take my advice? Now, I want to repeat that mantra. Please don't take my advice. Instead, I'm going to tell you some stories, along with as much context and reasoning behind them as possible, so you can decide for yourself how my experiences and observations could impact you. But first, I want to spin you a short fiction story. The wonder of the human imagination is the ability to inhabit and walk in the skin of anyone and anything. With this unique and otherworldly ability, we are able to examine problems in ways that we might not have done otherwise. To that end, today, I've written a short story called To the Lands of Milk and Honey. To the Lands of Milk and Honey. Every summer, the 3 families of the Mice clan would hold their election. These days, it was a formality. Mia's uncles, Jin and Arjun, always debated in front of the nest. Mia's own mother and father never ran. This year, as every year, Uncle Jin would win. You'd think he'd never held the position before in how he sniffed and rubbed everyone's noses in thanks. Well, everyone was thanked except Arjun, of course. Arjun always complained that the clan was playing it too safe. The clan, he said, would have had grandchildren, even great-grandchildren by now, if only they could follow him and see what he had seen. For Mia, though, the election meant the start of the summer foraging season. The Mice clan had 2 properties and 2 seasons. Every summer they lived under the garden house way, way down at the edge of the property, right by the lake. The fruit trees were plentiful and their well-built secret tunnels took them away from anything that could possibly hurt them, especially the foxes and the cats. Every autumn, the Mice families would start the long and dangerous trek from their summer paradise. Tunnels were cleaned and food was readied for transport to survive the lean winter months. As the snows arrived and the ground hardened with the early frost, Mia and her family would make the multi-day trek from the summer house to the abandoned hut further into the property. Life was slim pickings during the winter. The mice spent it largely hibernating and eating sparsely from their food stores. This is where Arjun and Jin just did not see eye to eye. Every winter, against Jin's wishes, Arjun was fueled by his sense of adventure and exploration. He delved further and deeper into the property. He discovered cellars laden with dried fruit, nuts, and more, but Jin forbade him time and time again, no matter how much Arjun argued. The family, Jin said, was happy. It might not be the best they could be, and yes, no births had happened in quite a while, and yes, maybe things could be better. But it was better to work slowly with what you had. Under the hut, he said, no matter how hard the foxes dug and taunted them, they could not get through. Arjun would open his paws and show the riches of the cellars beyond. New ways of living, he said, new ways of thinking. Then came the winter of change. Mia had noticed and complained that the abandoned hut had fallen apart just a bit more this last summer. In the dead of winter, when the winds were howling and the snow was drifting and the food was running low, it was the smell that alerted the mice. A fox had managed to break through some tunnel, and the fervent scratching sent the mice against the far walls of the hut. Mia could feel her heart thumping, her mother and father huddled together, whimpering and shivering. It was Arjun who saved them all. Uncle Jin had no answer when Arjun led them towards the cellars that only he had explored and knew how to find in the mazes below the ground. Indeed, just as Arjun had said, this was the promised land, warmth and food for the whole winter. The families grew. By the time the next summer came, Mia was shepherding 4 young cousins and a new brother born in that bountiful cellar that spring. That summer, for the first time, Uncle Arjun was elected as the leader and Jin sat back. And so the years passed. Arjun expanded the mice clan to new greatness as the mice feasted on the riches of those cellars that he and his lieutenants uncovered and expanded upon during the following years. Soon, Arjun had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. Even Jin had forgotten the old ways of doing things. The clan now numbered 10 families strong, and the summer and winter duality was relegated to history. Mia also grew her whiskers long and raised a brood in the cellar. In the 3rd year in that glorious cellar, she was the first to notice something was wrong. There was a smell in the air unlike any she had known before, a smell that she could taste, a smell that came from all around her, from the very food she had been eating, a smell that rang in her ears and caught in her mouth. A smell that worked its way into the bones. She scurried to turn around, though feeling had already left her. She watched Uncle Jin fall in his tracks. Her mother died with her whiskers in tainted rice. Mia was the last to go. She watched, frozen to the ground, unable to lift a limb or squeak a sound, as gas canisters fell and boots shook the cellar floor. I was once asked by my company to describe what made a great manager. Instead of listing a bunch of traits, the naive me sat down and described the difference between a manager and a leader. In the back of my mind, and only knowing my own context, I was hoping to have more people question what made themselves tick. I say naive because in setting those traits down, I believe anyone reading them probably sought to emulate the traits rather than dig deeper to examine themselves. So what is the difference between a manager and a leader? Here's what I wrote back then. A manager helps a team achieve its tasks with empathy. They are great communicators, and while they may not be mentors themselves, they can facilitate mentorship and coaching. They are accountable, listen carefully, never blame, and have an attention to detail. A leader inspires greatness with empathy. They are great communicators, but exceptionally able to communicate direction and vision. They mentor, coach, and challenge the status quo. They question, have an attention to detail, never blame, but are ready to accept blame. I would now add a bit more to this. A manager excels in what is known. They are able to forge a path to greatness with the items, people, and knowledge they have at hand. Their strength lies in the ability to carefully consider what is at hand and drive away the unknown. The best managers deliver every time. A leader excels in the unknown. They are able to forge something out of nothing, find meaning in ambiguity, belief in chaos, and drive a North Star that is inspirational despite the path being hazy. Their ability to find a path against all odds and take risks can save the day. You are probably listening to this like anyone listens to any self-help piece, with the internal question of, how does this relate to me? You might already be thinking that one set of traits is better than the other, with a voice sounding in your mind, oh yes, I am the best leader, or vice versa. The truth is much more subtle and often what we don't want to hear. Just like extroversion and introversion, people are rarely singularly managers who excel in the operationally known, or singularly leaders forging a path across an untamed jungle. Despite how I have framed it up to now, life rarely is as stark as the short story I wrote about this, To the Lands of Milk and Honey. At different times of your life, in diverse circumstances and in varying social groupings, you will be a stronger manager or a stronger leader. The key to success is trying to understand what traits you exhibit of the two and to understand when to be your best version of a manager and when to be your best version of a leader. It is also the case that managing and leading in the known is so much easier than managing and leading in the unknown. Like water finds its way down the easiest ground, so do we as humans fall prey to what is the easiest challenge. The perils lie when you go to any extreme and cannot pull back. Let me share a story when I failed at this at the tender age of barely 20. A long time ago, when I was working as the co-editor at the student newspaper, The Muse, I had this dream that we could take the weekly newspaper and make it into a twice-weekly newspaper, maybe even a daily newspaper. I remember passionately convincing people that this was a great idea. I think it might have been inspired by the editorial staff going to see the movie The Paper. The truth is, we pushed this idea, led the change, and for 2 weeks, we produced shorter versions of the newspaper twice a week. I think here, as at other times in my life, I was acting with a very dogmatic push towards the unknown. The reality, however, would be reflected later that year when we did our performance reviews. We had absolutely succeeded in doing a twice-weekly newspaper, but in the process, I had worn everyone down and burnt people out. I would argue I had been a pretty poor manager. The experiment was never to be repeated again, and my dream of a daily newspaper died. In many ways, this story exemplifies startup CEOs and founders. We excel in the unknown, the crazy, the ridiculous. The problem is that leading in the unknown, being inspirational, can only get you so far. But I've also found that being the opposite doesn't work in business either. If you only ever operate in the known, if you must have certainty on where you are going, if operations and ensuring everything is working like a machine dominate, you lose the imagination and the creativity. In the end, you might have a well-defined and executed grandfather clock, but you've missed the reason why you should take your grandfather clock and put it on someone's wrist. Our need in business to classify others and ourselves as managers and leaders leads to some interesting and bizarre behaviors. For example, we give people titles like engineering manager and team lead. I would argue that in most companies, they functionally mean the same thing in a product or engineering department. People with these titles are trying to achieve a good outcome with group work in a development team, hopefully as independently as possible. Typically, these positions are accountable for how a team performs. Words and titles matter, no matter how much I wish they didn't. When people think of themselves either as a manager or leader, but not both, you end up with interesting and usually not great outcomes. I've noticed that calling someone an engineering manager sometimes creates all the behaviors of a people manager and none of the behaviors of a team leader. I've seen the opposite in calling people team leads. Many people I know would argue with me, but in most businesses, I have witnessed more managers than leaders. In my opinion, a truly great person is one who can delve into themselves and understand their behaviors that drive operational excellence and can elevate themselves to working in the unknown and driving leadership. I'm personally continuing to work on both sides of myself. Today, more than ever, we are in the state of massive business and societal disruption. The norms of trade, development, software, climate, pretty much everything is being thrown out the window. The pace of the unknown is increasing. Today, more than ever, we need managers that deliver on promises our businesses need to be successful. But I would also argue that today, more than ever, we need to ensure that we have people ready to work in that unknown, ready to drive change when needed, and learn to inspire and set direction. This is not something that comes from a self-help book. This is not something that comes from management or leadership training. This is something that comes from you stepping outside of your own comfort zone and embracing change. So what are you? A manager or a leader? I hope you are both. And because there are perils in being only one or the other, learn how to lead to win and not lead us over a cliff. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tales Under the Cat Tree podcast. I hope you enjoyed my short story to the lands of milk and honey, and also my thoughts around leadership and management and the perils thereof. I will be back next week. You can reach me through email, contact@dupes.ca, bluesky@dups.ca, or on my site and this post at tales.dupes.ca. Remember to subscribe so I can get to know you better and learn from you. Give your pet a cuddle and your loved ones a hug till we meet again for some Tales Under the Cat Tree.